What's going on, y'all? I'm JD PicKell. Today on the Hard Count, we're going to rank Baylor's best quarterbacks of all time. Let's start this conversation with the criteria that I built the list with, okay? Number one, stats. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Number two, wins, team success. Now, wins aren't exactly a quarterback stat, but great teams just have great quarterbacks. So in that way, they kind of are. Number three, legacy. What did you do for Baylor? How will you be remembered? Now, all three of these things I took into account over the entirety of a player's career. I think that's just the most apples-to-apples way to compare them. Honorable mentions. J.J. Joe and Sean Bell are two guys that you have to mention in terms of all-time greats of Baylor football, specifically at the quarterback position. Sean Bell, obviously, going to be the quarterback's coach going forward, but everybody on this list is standing on their shoulders. Now, I wasn't able to put them on the list because of those team performances and individual stats among both those players, but absolutely should be mentioned. So without further ado, number 5, Seth Russell. We're talking about potential. Seth Russell's probably a lot higher on this list, a guy that I believe was going to win the Heisman Trophy before his injuries, a guy that I think could have led Baylor to a national title, but again, alas, unfortunately bit by the injury bug, but he was phenomenal even when he was healthy at Baylor. 13-3 as a starter, is number 8 all-time in terms of passing yards, number 4 all-time in terms of passing touchdowns with 60. So, again, I think he's a guy that would have been a lot higher if he's able to play the duration of both those seasons, but still, statistically, a guy you got to put on this list. Also, just a winner. Number 4, again, remember, the entirety of a player's career. So number 4, we have Nick Florence. He's a guy that would be a lot higher on this list if he plays more than one season. He played his freshman year some, but that was because RG3 got hurt. And so the real sample size we have for him is his senior year. In his senior year, he lit it up, okay? Led the country in passing with over 4,000 yards. Led the team to a Holiday Bowl victory. They were 8-5. They finished number 25 in the country. Did a great job. He kept Baylor relevant after RG3 left the program. There's a lot of potential for Baylor to kind of fall off the face of the earth. Nick Florence said, nuh-uh, not going to let that happen. 33 touchdowns passing, 10 rushing, number 4 all-time, and he deserves to be in this all-time conversation. Again, I wish we could put him higher, but just that one season keeps it from being that way. Number 3 all-time, Charlie Brewer. Now, your mind's going to give you some recency bias, tell you he's not one of the best ever. You're wrong. Look at the numbers. Number 2 all-time in terms of passing touchdowns and passing yards. Good for 9,700 yards all-time, 65 touchdowns. Took over a program when his freshman season, 1 win. His junior season, 11 wins. Baylor was in a really dark place when he was a freshman, and he made them not only competitive, but one of the best teams in the country. Now, you look at Matt Rule, you look at those defenses, they both deserve a lot of credit for that team's success, but Charlie Brewer gave himself every single time he showed up. I mean, he's one of the fiercest competitors. He is the fiercest competitor on this list. Love the way he plays. I think the farther we get from Charlie Brewer's career at Baylor, the more we're going to begin to appreciate and recognize the greatness that he brought to this team. Also should be mentioned, 64% completion percentage, which is good for second on this list behind the guy that won the Heisman. Number 2 all-time, Bryce Petty. And if you disagree, you're just being petty, all right? He was able to win the Big 12 title not just once, but twice, the first time ever in program history. That in itself, I believe, can stand on its own. 22-4 as a starter. Good for top 3 in both yards and touchdowns all-time at Baylor. 62 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions. For how much Baylor was pushing the ball deep during that era, that says a lot about what he was able to do as a quarterback. Also put Baylor on the national stage in terms of bowl games they played in, the Fiesta and the Cotton, which was something Baylor hadn't done in a long, long time. Okay, now the knock on him is going to be 0-2 as a starter in those bowl games. I don't know if that's really a fair conversation to have. I mean, you look at both those games, and Bryce Petty balled, okay? Threw for over 300 yards in the loss against UCF, over 500 yards against Michigan State. So in both those games, Bryce Petty played really well, and the offense scored over 40 points. So you want to blame someone for those losses? Don't blame Bryce Petty. And number 1, the best quarterback to ever step foot in Waco. You knew what it was when you clicked the video. Robert Griffin III, RG3, number 1 all-time in terms of passing touchdowns with 78, over 10,000 yards passing, good for number 1 all-time there as well. As a rusher, over 2,200 yards, good for number 6 all-time. 33 touchdowns on the ground, good for number 4 all time. I mean, the dude was a creative player. Led Baylor to their first 10-win season since the Big 12's formation and the first 10-win season since 1980. Like, he made Baylor what it is today. He made Baylor cool again, okay? He made Baylor a cool place to be. Won the Heisman Trophy along with just about every other award. Baylor saw record application numbers in the first 2 years following his Heisman Trophy. He pretty much funded what is now McLean Stadium. I would go out on a limb and say he's not only the best quarterback to ever play at Baylor, he's the best athlete to ever be at Baylor, and deservedly so, has a statue in front of McLean Stadium. And I don't know if we'll ever see another player like RG3. Okay, so that's the list. Like it, love it, hate it. You want to argue with me about it, you better bring some facts, you better bring some stats and some numbers, because I brought mine. This has been the Hard Count. We're going to keep this party rolling, so subscribe and like the channel, like the video, I should say. We're going to have a really good time here, and we will see y'all next time.